Boy, I'm real late on this one, aren't I? I just want to go ahead and say that before we begin, I want to show my appreciation to all of you for being as patient as you've been for these products to drop. Your support is greatly appreciated. Even though it's been more than a year, this is all a new learning experience for me, so I'm going to try my best to adapt to it. You can be sure of that, as the injury bug is at ruining a monstrous upset. Make that 2 oranges in sport pain. On with the show.
Let's roll. Everyone.
Oh, it's trouble with this one. You got barbecue back. I'm a man. I'm 40. You can't believe what just happened.
Not come off just different leagues.
It's that time again, ladies and gentlemen. We have to overlook another week of experiences from us college football fans. Many of you are feeling joy, and others are feeling agony and simply wondering when the administration is going to start taking football seriously. But while the football season continues and hope looks bleak, I remain here to tell you all about it as the Tartarian Empire expands. 20,000 subscribers and growing, and I can't thank you all enough for it. Just remember, your team could always be worse than they are now. Case in point can be found right here. The black uniforms worn on this day weren't a fashion choice. They were simply wearing the most formal thing they could for the funeral. This is otherwise known as the day the Mike Gundy era died. Even if it wasn't fired at halftime, it's set up for what was inevitable. We expected an improvement in Stillwater, and what we got was the death of everything around them. Even the brain-eating amoeba died from starvation because there's no more brains to feast on. Whatever hope of return is in the abyss and never to return. The production on this field is proof of that. Haas Henge's injury, among others, should make a Big 12 team's route to the conference title a little harder. Not to grade them to a level where they're getting outplayed by Tulsa. They were a bottom G5 team last season, and this year, they look not to be much better. They lack any sort of fundamental function for football, but yet they were able to take the Cowboys to the woodshed and effectively seal the deal with their first Power Conference win in 13 years. When a video game VTuber can perfectly encapsulate the situation your program is in, it's time to hang it up. Give the NCAA your hypothetical phone and call it a season. No sense in crying about Oklahoma leaving you behind when you can't even win Timu's bedlam. You care more about preserving a one-sided rivalry than you do putting halfway decent football onto the field. Get out of my sight. I love plot twists, don't you? We surely got one here. 2 teams with optional offense suddenly figuring out how to move the ball down the field on each other. Fox Sports on a Friday night certainly worked its magic here. Iowa, under the magic of Mark Gronowski, put up more points by themselves than Oklahoma State and Tulsa combined. Not sure what kind of deal with the devil they made to achieve that, but good for them. Between Gronowski's ability to do something we haven't seen in the past 20 Iowa quarterbacks, plus the refurbished run game, and the Hawkeyes are moving the ball again. The Scarlet Knights, however, were moving the ball downfield as well. Athan Krakatoa finished the day with over 300 yards passing. Guess in order for the Hawkeyes to have an offense, they have to sacrifice a part of their defense to get it. Seemed to pay off because Rutgers struggled to keep up once they were down against the Hawk Tuas. Gronowski didn't even have to score through the air. All of the touchdowns were on the ground. Rutgers was as good at shutting down the dual threat as Brian Kelly was before the realization of Harold Perkins. Thus, Iowa wins in a shootout, a statement uttered as many times as Needle Dick Cucumber Squidtard in the microwave. Both once now. Sorta seems to me like Shiano is living inside of an invisible ceiling. Just remember that Maryland outside of the month of September exists, so take your wins where you can get them. The test we've been waiting for. Texas Tech at this point is the frontrunner of the conference. They've gained this reputation by spending all of their federal funding for NIL. Utah did, unlike Oklahoma State, and proved to some degree that they are attempting to undo the failures of the previous season. Thus, we have a fight for Big 12 dominance where the victor gets all the spoils. It's the first time Utah has faced off against somebody with more injuries than they have, but even without the might of Quentin Joyner, Tech was still moving with a ferocity that the Utes struggled to handle. Facing any Texas Tech team that has an actual defense is a tough task at hand after all, but even beyond that, the Red Raiders had something else up their sleeve. Quarterback depth. The moment Baron Morton went down, Will Hammond took on the mantle with ease, bringing an unbound element to the Tech offense Utah was not prepared for. They kept him in check for 3 quarters, but once crunch time came around, they collapsed under the might of the talent feed. Utah does what Utah does best and collapses due to over-conservativeness and a lack of offense through the game. It does more to prove that UCLA was just that bad than it does anything else. Tech tried to give you the game with Morton starting plus a penalty on every drive, but you were having none of it. You miss the Pac-12 more and more as the days go by. Tech, until proven otherwise, is a clear contender to rep the entire conference. Pending they don't fall off a map, they are the Big 12 Conference. Please just keep an eye on Kansas in the meantime. Boy, Matt Wells really sucks, holy shit. Oh, silly Arkansas. You're not allowed to have nice things. You must suffer as per the contract of the SEC. Also, it just so happens you're matched up against an up-and-coming G5 contender in Memphis. They need another Power 4 win to raise more awareness for another Big 12 invitation. Since the Pig-time defense was busy getting cooked and put on your latest order at McDonald's, the offense was about the only thing the Piggies could actually put their hopes on. Taylon Green, while far more inaccurate than previously, put the game on his shoulders with several clutch plays through the quarters. He had to, because Sutton Smith was busy putting up a career-high rushing number on the defense. It was two offenses that kept beating each other up for dominance over the other. Even when Arkansas looked like they had control, an all-too-known villain of theirs came in from the tunnel. The Arkansas Razorbacks. Every time Arkansas stepped onto the field, they bring the self-mutilation with them. Arkansas fans have become so desensitized to this way of football that they, among the rest of us, know that it's only a matter of time before they fuck it up. You lost last week off a fumble to lose the game, so now that you've learned your lesson, no way you'll do the same thing.
He's met, but he does surge ahead to what should be a first down. He was met by Cruz Law.
Memphis is saying they've got the football.
They are claiming they have the football.
After review play, the runner fumbled the ball prior to being down by rule.
An Arkansas accident on the level of putting Bobby P on a motorcycle, in typical Arkansas and Sam Pittman fashion no less. Considering what's coming up, this is likely the one that lit Sam Pittman's contract on fire. He's now a complete 500 as head coach, and your next game is against Notre Dame. Safe to say said game will go like this.
You want this piece of bacon?
Forgetting Memphis' attempt to crystal the game, they now control their destiny if they can win out. Big if, as it's the G5 and there's no telling how long it'll take for you to do the Arkansas trademark and fall flat on your face. I'm not fooled, and if you know history, you won't be either. This is a story we've seen all too many times before. Maryland looks like a legit threat in the Big Ten. Keyword looks. The defense is holding Wisconsin's air raid back, and their own offense is moving down the field with enthusiasm sometimes. Under the throwing ability of Malik Washington, the Turtles had some sort of momentum to work with going into the game. Plus, it was the revenge factor against Billy Edwards for having to witness the football he gave them last season. It's a good win for Maryland when you conveniently forget that this Wisconsin team, and their program as a whole, has as much worth as a literal block of cheese. Ever since Luke Fickell got there, he gutted the program from top to bottom trying to install an offense that'll never work at the Power 4 level. The offense is such an immovable dump that the W logo is now just a description for apathy. Getting dragged at home by a Mike Locksley offense is proof that it'll never work out between Fickell and Wisconsin. The injury excuse only works when the things you lost are actually talented. You're out of them. All that to say, September Maryland is no doubt a force in the Big Ten and a potentially scary team to face at the wrong time. Anytime after September, they immediately disintegrate into football syphilis. If they go 1 week in October looking like an actual team instead of this, I'll start to buy into them. Not to mention Wisconsin's offense as a whole right now is likely the worst in the Power 4. But it is your first ever win against them in program history, so no reason to dog on your future transgressions any further. I'm sure there's worse going on out there. Huh? That's weird. Why is the Clemsoning alarm going off now? Oh, no, they didn't!
If they want me gone, if they tired of winning, they can send me on the way, because that's all we've done is win. So if they tired of winning, we've won this league 8 out of the last 10 years. I don't know if that's good or not, to win your league 8 out of 10 years, to go to the playoffs 7 out of 10 years, to be in 4 national championships, win it twice. Yeah, we're a little down right now. Take your shots, but I got a long memory, in case y'all don't know. We'll be all right. We'll bounce back. This is a program built to last, always has been, always will be. And I would just say, if you give up on us if you don't believe in us because we've lost 2 games down to the last straight and you didn't believe in us anyway, so it don't matter. You wasn't all in anyway. If you're all in, you burn the ships, man. There ain't no exit strategy. Like, you're freaking all in. And hey, listen, I mean, if Clemson's tired of winning, they send me on my way, but I'm gonna go somewhere else and coach. I ain't going to the beach. Hell, I'm 55. I got a long way to go.
What else do I need to say? He outright told you what to do next. Fran Brown is definitely going to the spa after that one. For the final year for the time being, we are blessed with the battle for the iron skillet between the Horsies and the shit posters. As unfortunate as it may be that it is ending for now, we at least get to witness the greatness one last time. The game certainly lived up to our hopes, as TCU has recollected their offense in time for this war. SMU has got more death penalties on their program than successful attempts to stop Eric McAllister. He quite literally took the game over. For SMU, Kevin Jennings is the prime example of fuck it, we ball, because that dude just simply goes out there and does a thing. Sometimes it's good, other times not so. He needed to play a perfect game because the defense he was teamed up with didn't feel like playing today. The only thing they accomplished was ensuring McAllister would be the victim of multiple years of NIL bidding wars. Credit to Josh Hoover for being the only quarterback I've seen that looks mid while also throwing 5 touchdowns in a game. That's a pretty hard feat to pull off, but this result at least confirms SMU is not the team they were last season. An already struggling secondary looks like they got extra sanctions on the DB room specifically. Additionally, competition from the Big 12 is still a grade or 2 above some of the cancer you find in the ACC. Now you get to go play with them, so have fun with that. TCU regains the skillet and gets to keep it until the rivalry is redeemed. All you've got to hope for is that the administration votes in your best interest. Yeah, anyway, what's that fight song? Bing Bong F*** a Goose? Yeah, close enough. Not sure if you realize, but you're one of the last remnants from the group of 6 that can actually do something in the postseason. Now is way too early to blow your load and fall flat on your face. How the hell is it that North Texas's defense struggles against the Army option, but not Tarleton State? I have an answer to this, because they didn't do that. The Black Knights came to the sudden realization that passing the football in the Big 2025 was probably a worthy investment. Yeah, I wonder why Paul Johnson isn't coaching anymore, because their triple option style only works against D3 programs and Kansas State. Not much of a difference, honestly. North Texas's Drew Messmaker had no issues carving up the defense, and their run game was moving on all cylinders. The defense couldn't seem to get out of their own way, though, resulting in Army coming back late and taking the game beyond regulation into chaos overtime, despite the Mean Green having a 21-0 lead. Who would you take in overtime? The team that's been slinging it for 4 games in a row, or the one who got their first 100-yard passing game since the British still own this land? The answer will not surprise you at all.
Helms, the fake. Helms rolls, throws, end zone short, incomplete. And North Texas wins in overtime.
By the way, Dwayne Coleman got those 100 yards passing off of deep bombs. All that to say, I'm not sure why they don't do that more often. North Texas is now 4-0 for the first time since the fake not fake return on Chad Morris. They won the game in clutch time too. That makes it 2 big wins over Arkansas. The best conclusion that can be formulated from this one is that you never put the Ducks up against an OSU team if you want them to lose, except in the postseason. Another conclusion is that you never put the Beavers up against anyone if you want them to win. The first quarter sets us up for what we thought might have been some good football, but then Oregon stopped playing with their food and Dante Moore went off. Having 37 different people that can run the football for the Duckies did well to solidify a run game for over 200 yards. The Beavers having the worst play calling ever on third downs contributed to their ability to do nothing. This is what happens when you hire defensive coordinators as a head coach and then don't bring an offensive coordinator worth a damn. You get an offense for decoration. The only sense of dignity you have left is that you continue to play this game despite knowing the outcome several months ahead of time. Just like UCLA, you sacrifice the football program for a baseball team that can compete at the national level. There's no take-backsies for a deal like that. We find out all too well whether or not the Duckies are the real deal shortly, as they are thrown under the lights in a whiteout Happy Valley next weekend. Be careful with all the complaints about the team. You might actually have something to complain about now. Does anybody else find it extremely weird that this is a ranked matchup? Between 2 undefeated teams, no less. Both have strong Power 4 wins under their belt and both have giant aspirations now for this season. Jackson Arnold coming back into Norman as the enemy sets up for a fantastic brawl between the two. But just as every other game with these two, instead we got a gigantic pile of hokey, with squandered drives, untapped potential, and more yards from ref ball than from actual offense. Along with all the ultra soft penalties they unleashed, they missed some of the most egregious and obvious that you could have gotten. Not sure if they ever train anyone to officiate anymore, but at this point, it feels like they're putting out hobos from downtown and dressing them up as zebras. As with all ref-filled games, Auburn fans are quick to pinpoint the SEC's YouTube-like apology on Twitter as a way to say they were hosed and should have won this game. Many of the Auburn fans can't count past the number of fake titles they have now, but the ones that can know why they really lost. 10 total sacks on Jackson Arnold would have you on the losing side 99 out of 100 times. Half of them were his mistake, but that doesn't deviate from the facts. Here's another fact. That final attempt to move the ball was horrendous. Just give the ball to Cam Coleman and let him do a thing.
Throw a Hail Mary towards Cam Coleman. He goes down in the end zone, a safety.
Get the fire truck. The barn is in flames again. Next time, tell Arnold that holding onto the football for 3 business days on every snap doesn't equal success. As cathartic I'm sure this was for the Sooners, many contenders await in the distant future, including Texas and the Red River Shutout. I said what I said, especially with the newest knowledge dropping on Oklahoma's doorstep. You know these words all too well, Oklahoma fans. The injury bug doesn't discriminate, but it sure does royally
Might as well be in different leagues, not conferences, different leagues.
I feel that pretty much explains everything you need to know about this game. The Wrath of Trinidad Chambliss continues forward as he ass blasts all the competition he battles up against. Tulane's poor secondary never really even stood a chance. Their defense as a whole was erased and wiped off the plane of existence it stood upon. This wouldn't have been the end of the world had Jake Retzloff actually hit his receivers, but the only thing that took a hit was the gambler's money bag if they went for the under. In fact, the Tulane movement was such a mess in this game that they had to put him on the bench for a quarterback from Iowa. That just about removed any chance the offense was doing anything for the rest of the day. We all expected the Rebel offense to perform to par, but the Ole Miss defense showing up was a welcome surprise for the Landshark fans. We understand more as to why Elaine Kiffin wants John Sumrall in the SEC now. After a beatdown like that, I'd want him there too. With this result, both teams still control their own destiny, but the Green Wave will need to win out and look good doing it. Either that, or the entire G6 blows up en masse. Oh boy, I've seen this one before! This was surprisingly devious from the football gods. New year, new staff, revived life, but still losing in the Nebraska fashion of the one-score loss is about as cruel as you can get. Patrick Mahomes 2.0 had 300 yards through the air, but even that wasn't enough. Plus, when you allow 7 sacks similarly to what Auburn did, your likelihood of winning is like Oklahoma State's chances of winning any games in the Big 12. Michigan proved that picking up Justice Haynes was one of the best possible moves anyone could have taken in the portal. Especially from them. What? Did you think they were gonna throw? Even with the welcome surprise of a caught Hail Mary from Nebraska of all teams, it wasn't enough to undo the everlasting curse. No, it didn't end just because Cincinnati sucks. You've got 30 losses in a row to ranked teams. Until you shut that down, your agony must continue. Nebraska has just become the undisputed one-loss champions. You'd go great in the SEC because we too love making up hypotheticals. Michigan is no doubt better from where they were, but completing some passes is still a long way away from being the top dog in the conference again. Come up on another team with a strong rushing defense, and the Paul Johnson route might be the most viable option. Ladies and gentlemen, football degenerates of all kinds, the impossible has become possible. Notre Dame has won a football game. The first 0-2 team to be ranked since the 80s has now been given a reason to stay in the rankings at 1-2. Wonderful. If we could rank the Notre Dame offense this week but leave the defense out the top 25, I could understand that a whole lot more. It's a shame the NIL budget couldn't be offered to Al Golden too. The defense as a whole looked a lot less predictable under him than it is in Chris Ash. It's his hire, plus the personnel loss, that have made Notre Dame's defense go from menacing in the offseason to optional today. As it stands now, Ash is turning into the most hated man in South Bend. Come on, would you go away? Purdue tried their hardest to stay in contention, as Ryan Brown showed more enthusiasm on the field than many other quarterbacks before him. But the Soilermaker defense can only do so much against the might of CJ Carr and Jeremiah Love combined. Oh cool, Love actually showed up this time. If they stay consistent, and the defense wakes up somewhere along the way, Notre Dame can redeem the bad start and maybe push their way back into contention. They need some serious chaos for that to happen though. Plus, you might have given Purdue fans hope for 2025, and that's a crime in itself. Correct me if I'm wrong, but is Bill Belichick's name being considered for the NFL Hall of Fame? Because it's the year 2025 that'll make them reconsider. We're watching a legacy of Super Bowls be tarnished by unwatchable college football. As the weeks go on, I'm becoming more and more convinced that it's actually Jordan Hudson coaching the offense. I bet he knows the plays better because every time you get a look at Bill, he's lost another brain cell. They keep having to switch game plans because Max Johnson and Gio Lopez are taking turns taking game-long injuries.
You got out-schemed by Alex Grinch.
What? One look at his tape with USC will tell you all about that. Lo and behold, though, he looked like the second coming of Jim Knowles when put up against the UNC offense. Funny how the defense has somewhat of a brain, but now it's the turn for the opposite side to have a stroke. Scott Frost made sure to shut down any hope of making it close, as his track record is a clear indication of how that would go. Nonetheless, it's been over 3,000 days since he lost a game at UCF. Once this experiment ends, I'm looking forward to the next random old guy UNC picks up for their head coach. My guess is Mitch McConnell. Well, it was bound to happen eventually, huh, State? There's absolutely no way the football gods were going to allow you to rise up and become the best team in the state of North Carolina. It's more likely the tar pits of UNC figure out football before you get back into that position. You know the cycle all too well. You're only allowed to win enough for Dave Doran to stick around and not get fired. It's the biggest pain point of the program and you aren't allowed to escape from it. They are also more proof that putting up more yards in a game doesn't equal winning the game, especially when you turn the ball over consistently like you're playing hot potato over football. The whole point is to score. Take notes from your opposition, as Anderson Castle just broke past the line for another touchdown as I was speaking. They learned after the beatdown against the Illini to avoid becoming the Arkansas Razorbacks and shooting yourself on every possession. If Darian Mensah can live up to his pay grade, the ceiling for this team likely equals what you got last year. It's not perfect, but it's Duke football and more than enough to satisfy you until basketball. And there's the rich rod we all know and love. It didn't take real long to show back up. Who else but the Jayhawks to do it too? We knew that eventually Kansas was going to go back on the death run in the Big 12, and they've taken no time off this season. The run game was strong, Jalen Daniels threw for 3 scores, and the defense was crushing the West Virginia opposition with minimal ease. Actually, I take that back. West Virginia was crushing themselves moreover. They won the backyard booty fest over Pitt and then chose to take an extra bye week off to celebrate. This wasn't even the best ball from the Jayhawks, but the Mountaineers just kept handing them more drives to work with. Turns out all the Jayhawks needed for life was a new stadium, new uniforms, and new coordinators, and now they're back to being contenders. All West Virginia needs is... and then they'll likely be contenders for the Big 12. Let me ask the Mountaineer fans something. So far, is this better or worse than the Neil Brown era? Do you trust Rich Rod to surpass Neil Brown? Is Neil Brown's era maybe the stature of your program? Do you like Neil Brown? I think we get the idea. Bringing Neil back as an offensive coordinator might not be the worst idea though. Can't be any worse than what you're looking at here. How did y'all ruin Cam Vaughn? I feel it would have been better to take these two coaches and just put them in a wrestling match. If Shane Beamer feels the same way about Eli Drinkwitz as he does about Burt Bielema, then I'd take the former over the latter. Unfortunately, we didn't get that, so the opposite outcome happened. Just as I explained last week, you need 11 Dylan Stewarts to do anything against the might of Ahmad Hardy. He's already leading the conference in rushing yards and on pace to break records for the school and potentially the league. If Mizzou switched to a run game offense, nobody could blame them. With the right line, he's as potent as Jeremiah Love or anything Penn State has. Even if the line isn't as great for Mizzou as previously mentioned, it's a whole mile better than the air dust South Carolina has for a line. Norris Sellers has 0.2 seconds to think about his throw before he's being chased by the entire defense. No wonder he couldn't hit anyone despite having open wide receivers at any point in the game. Not even the coaches trust the line, and the run game is the ultimate example of that. -9 yards. I'll say it again. -9 rushing yards. Wow, I wonder why they got beat by Missouri again. The Zoo gets a win that keeps them in the top 25 ahead of whenever a ranked team exposed to the lousy secondary they have, but on the bright side, Bo Pribula is looking very good. Looks to me like the Gamecocks have returned to the norm though. All you gotta do is lose to Clemson, and you'll be right back to the South Carolina we all know and love. My God, that game is gonna be on Nick Jr. at this rate. Tick, tock, tick, tock. That's all that can be said here. Don't let the score fool you. It's a clear indication of the fact that Billy Napier's days as Florida's coach are numbered. This team has given up on him. More specifically, the line has given up on him. Both lines, ironically. Florida's defense did more than enough to keep the Gators in the game, as they kept the yards to a minimum and secured at least one trademark Carson Beck interception. But the Gator offense was aborted in favor of wide receiver screens on 3rd down. It took the Gators 3 quarters to amass even 50 yards of total offense, on top of the fact they went an astounding 0 for 13 on 3rd downs. Even a Lincoln Riley necromancer isn't bringing back an offense that dead. Florida fans spent all offseason thinking they were back to the days of Tebow and Urban Meyer, but reality came in the form of the Muschamp days. Lagway tried to do what Sellers does and escaped the pocket on every play since he was guarding for himself, but by the time the ball was snapped, he was already surrounded like flies to a cow pile. 3 touchdowns combined in the 3 games he played against FBS opponents has been a result of what you're watching. Saying the Gator offense was a bust is wrong. It's an implosion. It's like a man watching another man drown with floaties on. The entire year so far has been nothing but self-mutilation for the Gators, and the only good thing to come from this week is that you don't have to play football this Saturday. Spend the bye week doing more productive things, like spending time with family or friends, watching a movie, playing Sonic Racing Crossworlds on a Discord call until 4 a.m. I don't care what you do. In fact, do that every Saturday until you get that sweet, sweet ESPN notification. Which way? Wrong way! You know, I was worried for Kirk Cignetti. I didn't want people to think he was a massive liar. Turns out he was just a year too early. He really does beat the shit out of top 25 teams. I was questioning why Game Day missed out on this one, but they must have known something before anyone else did. There was absolutely nothing good that came out of this outcome for the Illini. They were fighting in the first quarter, but now they're just the dead Illini. The only eye seen here was the eye-shaped pillar shoved firmly into the sphincter of Burt Bielema. While Indiana ran the ball for over 300 yards, the Illini only amassed 2 total total yards rushing. Fernando Mendoza was near perfection, the opposition's only answer was to play dead. That didn't even work. The Hoosiers beat them into submission, and then beat them again until they were orange and blue dust. Cignetti wasn't even satisfied when they were up 50 points. He wanted blood, and he was never going to be satisfied. Ever. Did Bielema have relations with his wife or something? How could this have happened? One thing for sure is that in the eyes of the national media, that blowout win at Duke or really anything you've done this year has now been forfeit. Now the narrative will be, so what? They beat a team that got blown out by Indiana. So what? It'll take a win over Ohio State to erase this outcome, so good luck with that. 1 year of Hoosier dominance is a fluke. 2 or more, and now we're on to something. I'd advise you to Google that. Well, as if you didn't need any more proof, it's hard to pull off an upset as a one-man show against a team more talented than you in every position. Zach Eckhouse put his life on the line trying to do just about anything against the Apple Cup opposition, but with no help on his side plus the other side of the football, he couldn't get anything going. Washington State looked like a strong opponent for anyone to play despite these shortcomings. For 3 quarters. Even if Eckhouse did go off, it wouldn't have done much good. Damon Williams had a fire too hot to put out. It was 3 quarters of football entertainment before 1 quarter of Civil War II electric boogaloo. The moment Wazoo fumbled the ball, they fumbled the entire game. You leave Damon with any time to get it together and you're pretty much cooked. You may have gotten beat, but you do have some sort of pulse again at the bare minimum. You put up a better fight here than you did against North Texas, so take that for what it's worth. Also, you're not Oregon State. So trust the Jimmy Rogers process. The Huskies look real good on offense, and if they bring this product when Ohio State comes to town, the Nuts could find themselves in a big-time hole. Wait, this is your first road win in 2 years? What the hell was 2024? Just a reminder to the Stanford man. Just because Boston College trolled themselves by preventing your 0-12 season, it does not suddenly mean your season's turning around. You realized this last year, you'll realize it again. Your opposition understands too well what position you're in, but with the rekindled hope of Chandler Morris, they've got some backbone this time. Against his might, the only thing Stanford could do to counter is to suit up their GM and get him a magic year of eligibility from nowhere land. The only shock I'm getting out of watching the rotting trees at this point is in regards to their QB situation. Not sure if you realized, but Ben Goldbranson has games where he's played halfway decent like this one here, and then others where he's played full-on potato, like pretty much every other one he's played. There's always the scenario where he's figured it out, but regardless, why not try some new things? Being where you are, it wouldn't hurt to put some new faces out there to get some playing time. It's not like you're competing for anything as you are. By bringing in Frank Reich, you acknowledge beyond anyone else that you are in a buffer year. As for the Cavs, having Light again does well to prepare for the rest of Tank Conference play. The secondary needs some serious adjustments, otherwise you'll get bent even worse than Clemson did. My goodness, I still can't believe Clemson lost control of this conference. A brawl for a spot in contention for the Big 12. With many conference games underway this week as well, this is where the contenders are shown and the frauds are erased from your thoughts. Both of these have the potential to be in either category. As with all other things Baylor related, hope was entirely on the might of the offense. Sawyer Robinson continued to put up numbers, consistently finding Josh Cameron or Michael Trigg open downfield. What screwed them over was plundered drives through stagnation and turnovers. Arizona State had a similar issue, but rather it was due to the stagnation of Sam Leavitt. We knew losing Cam Skibbity would leave a noticeable hole in the roster, even with the rising running backs taking the mantle. Leavitt has potential to keep the offense as deadly as it was before, but mentally, he's just not gotten there yet. Nonetheless, the effort he put in was enough to keep them in the game for the entire way through. That plus the legendary legs of Jesus Gomez. 4 of 4 on field goals through the entire day, including the most important one a kicker could possibly make.
He got it. Arizona State wins.
Never easy to be on the side of scoring the game-tying touchdown, just to lose anyway. It's still an easier feeling to deal with than losing to Auburn, so at least this one stings a little less. -3 in the turnover department, and still losing though really sets up Dave Aranda to be right back in the fire his ass line. Not to mention, he's a defensive coach, so he's just a coach. Spend the next week getting the fork out of your ass. Straight ass. You're supposed to represent the good about California football, not pass it on to other teams. The only blessing that comes from what happened here was that it happened so late, not many from the East Coast were awake to witness the sickness in full force. But that's a blessing for us, not for you. JKS went from a freshman superstar to Wendy's newest recruit overnight. He went from putting up record-level stats to getting benched for Devin Brown. Not sure what San Diego State did defensively to pull this feat off, but it sent the blueprint for all the ACC opposition Cal has to battle against. They couldn't even get the brownie points to make themselves feel better, as they got shut out. So much for your first 4-0 start since 2019, huh? Should've known it was a facade and the media was hyping you up all for the inevitable downfall. The only shock was how early it happened this time. Maybe next year, when the opportunity arises once again, try establishing some sort of run game and then maybe you'll get your swagger back. Justin Wilcox is right back to where he started as he now has to climb the entire team of a giant sinkhole. For context, these are the same Aztecs that got wiped off the planet by Wazoo. The Golden Bears are still ways away from being anything beyond a turd-stained remnant of what the Pac-12 once was. I'd be shocked if you received an invitation to come back. Ah, yes, Big Ten After Dark. This was certainly after dark because it went on until 3 a.m. RIP the sleep schedule of the Michigan State fans, and they don't even get the consolation prize of good football on their end. USC fans get good football, but I'm sure you've begun to understand that that only applies to one side of the football. They've got a D-line to work with, but as is the norm, the IQ of the secondary as a whole is halved when signing the scholarship for the Condoms. This is little problem with Jaden Miava playing as he's been, over 200 yards through the air, and the most shocking part is that most of USC's yards are on the ground, with nearly 300 of them. The line at Aiden Childs rattled the whole game and they locked down Nick Marsh. And it would have been a blowout in favor of USC had it not been for self-inflicted ref ball interference. Michigan State tried to claw their way back in with key plays and nearly succeeded in doing so, but the lead was such that it was a task too tall for Jonathan Smith and co. Deciding crunch time was the time to test the line with a run game was probably not the best idea in trying to come back. There's a lot more questions that must be answered for the Spartans than for USC. But now it's time for the Condoms to wake up and show whether or not they are a bunch of frauds or worthy of a first-round playoff elimination from diarrhea defense. Nonetheless, prayers for Wayne Matthews. Well, that's just about everything for this week. As per the norm, we have some elite matchups, and it won't be long until we repeat the cycle. Here's your top 25 for this week. What a wonderful current year we're in to witness Vandy and Indiana ranked and undefeated too. But Clemson is unranked and they suck. Mississippi State will join the former after we save Jeff Levy's job. Now that you've seen the top 25, take a look at this. I had to bear witness to this creation, or fan art, some have made of my mascot. So now you do too. Have fun trying to sleep tonight. Until the next one, see you next time, and of course, power to... What the... Of all times, why do I get one of these? Hold on a sec. Hello? Wait. Already? Wow. Not often am I left without words when something like this occurs, but here we are. No doubt from anyone watching, Oklahoma State was trending downwards at an exponentially increasing rate. Mike Gundy refused to adapt to the NIL era and tried to do things the old-fashioned way, and once he opened up to it, it was already too late. They went from semi-functional to straight-up orange screen of death. It was clear the move had to be made somewhere along the season. But considering just how much of an icon Gundy was to college and more importantly Oklahoma State football, we all just kind of figured that they let him at least finish the season in a much more honorable departure. A 20+ year long legacy being snuffed out like this is brutal to see. But while the end was rough for sure, Gundy left a historical landmark on the college football world and on the program that'll be remembered for multiple lifetimes. He was the greatest coach to touch the program and one of the most entertaining figures of the sport. But that doesn't deter from the fact that it was time for a change to be made. I'm sure you've got big plans wherever you go next, Gundy, but your time here is done. Mike Gundy, so long, cowboy.
That's why I don't read the newspaper. Because it's garbage. And the editor that let it come out is garbage. Attacking an amateur athlete for doing everything right. And then you want to write articles about guys that don't do things right and downgrade them, the ones that do make plays. Are you kidding me? Where are we at in society today? Come after me. I'm a man. I'm 40. I'm not a kid. Write something about me or our coaches.